Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at NECA's new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Bebop and ROCKSTEADY 2-pack, which is a 2-pack many people are very excited about, and I can imagine many people are going to be very excited about if they find them in the store. I don't know. I've heard that they're very hard to locate. I have not tried personally, but I've heard that it's rough, so good luck with that. I don't know. Hopefully it's not that bad. But the set is not that bad, and there's some really good stuff about it, and there's some stuff that's really not so good, so we actually have some stuff to talk about. Believe it or not, this is a review, so we're going to do it. So let's go ahead and get them off the stand and take a closer look. Alright, we're going to do both of these guys one review. We're going to do one after the other, straight up full reviews, because these are not reissues like all of the other figures in the line so far. This guy stands roughly, let's say the top of his head, about 6.5 inches, which makes him just about 16.5 centimeters. For comparison, here he is up against a foot soldier. They are about the same height. Foot soldier actually is technically a little bit taller, and I don't have the other turtles on hand, but it's the same mold as this, so here he is up against a turtle. So definitely some size over him, and you guys know the foot soldier and Shredder are the same size, so we don't have to do that. Here he is up against a Batman figure. Let's say you wanted to do some crossover stuff. There's Batman, and here he is up against a Marvel Legends figure, X-Men versus Turtles. Something like that. So there you go, size comparison out of the way. Let's talk aesthetics. This guy looks pretty cool right off the bat. They did do the cell shading coloring. So we have that shading on the foot soldiers and on the previous releases of the turtles. On the new releases, we don't have any of this two-tone stuff. We only have the black lines. These guys do have the two-tone stuff. So that is somewhat irksome to me, though it doesn't obviously make much of a difference. They still look fun, and it's not even that noticeable from the front. You wouldn't even be able to see it. But we do have a lot of that solid black, like inked style line work on these guys, and it does look really nice. Solid coloring throughout, very well done. I like it. Very cool looking. I do wish the face was probably a little bit cleaner, but it's not bad. It's not like it's ugly or anything like that. You can just see, you know, it's not perfect, but it's fine. It'll definitely do. The problem with that heavy line work is if you're going to put it on there, it really needs to be clean or it ends up just not looking good. But this one is closer to looking good than not, so that is okay. Obviously lots of new sculpt here, all the way new sculpt, and clean paintwork, so I'm happy with it. Aesthetically speaking, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. Now we're going to just go ahead and do all of the accessories at once because they each have the same sets of hands. They both come with 2 fist hands on them in the package. Then they each have 2 different sets of style pose / gripping hands. Exact same sets of hands throughout. We do have one little communicator with the Shredder on it, and that is just exceptional. The little cutout, or I guess it's probably a sticker of Shredder in there, is really nicely done, and it does appear to be the actual toy of him, which I love. It's not just a cartoon drawing, so that is great. Then we have 2 pistols and 2 rifles. That's it. Not an exceptional amount of accessories, so I'm only going to give it, well, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. It's a good batch of accessories, but the guns we've already seen. The communicator is pretty nice, but them having the exact same sets of hands, it does take a little bit out of the fun. Like, it's so obvious that they're just recolored versions, even though we know that that's what it is most of the time anyway. I don't know, maybe you guys understand what I'm talking about. But the other thing that's worth noting is that the fist hands have fingernails sculpted on them, and all the other hands just have little nobules for fingers. So, yeah, it's kind of a bummer, but still 8 out of 10 is not bad. One thing that does drive me absolutely insane, now I don't mind things like grenades being on the belt, and you don't need every little thing to be in a separate accessory, but we do have up here his knife, which is not. It's all just one molded piece, and I think that it would have been easy enough for them to include that as an accessory, but it is not included. And so that's the kind of thing where it's like an iconic type of thing. ROCKSTEADY's been seen with a knife a lot, and I think it would have been really nice for that to be something he can hold, rather than nothing unique in the package for him. So that does bug me a little bit, but since we did get the other accessories, and it's not like a duplicate gun molded into a holster, for instance, I think it's acceptable, but it's not ideal. Okay, so on to his articulation. The head, it appears to be a hinge. It could be a ball peg, but it's, I mean, I think it's a hinged ball peg, but maybe it's just a double ball peg. I can't get in there to see, but it does appear that the head can actually lean side to side, does look up a little bit, like a very little bit. That's up, and then down, it goes down quite far. So it looks to me like it's probably a double ball peg. You can rotate it a little bit, of course. So that's pretty cool. The mouth is hinged, so you can open that up and all the teeth tuck in. And they actually did a pretty good job with that. I think that's more than acceptable. That's pretty nice. And then for the shoulder, we have a straight up ball hinge shoulder. Not great range, honestly. It's pretty limited, and it does come out at a bit of an angle, but it's usable. Full rotation, of course. Bicep swivel, it just really can't move very much. The way it's so offset, you can see that the peg is not centered on the ball part here, so when you rotate it, there's no place for the meat of the bicep to go. It just bumps into the meat of the shoulder. So that offset, while anatomically speaking is more close to accuracy than not, it definitely hinders the articulation. Double jointed elbow is very stiff. Let's see if we can make it work. Uh-oh, not going. Let's try this one. Double jointed elbow. There we go. Just gonna take a little bit of muscle to get this going, but better than 90 degrees. Very nicely done. You can pose the arms very nicely despite their extra bulk, so that's pretty cool. For his torso, I don't know if it's supposed to have any lean or not. I can't get it to move other than to swivel just a little bit because he's got that fat belly hanging over. I'm guessing that's all they intended, so it's pretty limited. This is soft, and the belt is soft, so some things will flex a little bit as they bump into each other, but that's basically all you're gonna get. For the hips, we have our standard NECA hips, which are floppy and still suck, and now that I know exactly how they're made other than the general type of articulation, I know specifically how these are made, assuming they're the same as that Batman figure that fell apart on me. They need to change it. This floppy hip garbage it needs to go. It's not acceptable anymore. We do have ratcheting in the hips, which does allow them to go out to the side pretty well. So you can go farther, but I'm not going to force it. You don't need him to do the splits. So that's okay. They work fine that way. They're very heavy ratchets, but very floppy front to back. You do have a thigh swivel in there that's a little stiff, but it does work. Double jointed knees work very nicely, no issue there. And then for the ankles, I thought they were gonna just do ball pegs like this, like the foot, like the turtles. I guess no, the foot have hinges anyway. These guys have hinges, so you can bring the foot pretty far back and not very far forward, but enough to get him standing just fine. And then you have an actual pretty solid ankle swivel in there. Ankle rocker, so that's pretty nice. So other than the floppy joints and limitations, which is kind of what NECA is known for, is limiting articulation for the sake of sculpt, this guy's not too bad. So I'll give his articulation, I'll give it a 6. You know, you can't move the torso very much, the biceps don't work, and the hips are messy, but it works. It's not like it's on the negative side of this scale, so he gets a 6 out of 10 for articulation. I'm not going to bother reviewing. I'll give him a standalone score. He gets an 8 out of 10 because the aesthetic is very, very nice. So let's move on to his buddy. We have Bebop here. And if the camera will focus, we will do a height measurement, which puts him to his mohawk about 17 and a half. That's going to make him just a tiny bit shy of 7 inches. So aesthetically speaking, much like ROCKSTEADY, Bebop is pretty good. He is knock-kneed in the package. I'm hoping I can heat that up and his legs are gonna not be that way. I absolutely hate knock-kneed figures, and sometimes it's the sculpt, so I'm a little bit worried about that. But otherwise, he looks pretty good. The paints are clean enough. He does have the two-tone shading on him and the black line work. It's all pretty good. I think it's nice that they included actual chains for his wrist and his belt. He has a separate necklace there. He has his glasses on there. The paintwork on the shoes is pretty clean. Basically, just like ROCKSTEADY, Bebop is gonna get a pretty high score. I'm gonna put him at. Well, let's talk about one thing here, I guess. Even though it's not readily apparent, his glasses can hinge up, and then his eyes look like that. Is that what they're supposed to freaking look like? If that's what they're supposed to look like, I'm gonna have to check. I don't remember him looking like that underneath his glasses. So if that's what they're supposed to look like, then he gets a 9 out of 10. If that's not what they're supposed to look like, then he gets only an 8. It's not that big of a deal because the glasses go down, but his pupils are different and everything in there is solid black. So I don't know what's going on there. You guys can let me know in the comment section below, but I'll probably have checked by then anyway. But either way, still a high score for the aesthetic. We already talked about accessories. Let's do his articulation. So the neck is in the same situation as the other one, except he can look up much farther, so that's pretty cool. How far does it go down? That's about as far as it goes down. Leaning side to side. Yeah, it has some play, but not much. It's pretty stiff. You can rotate it more than you can lean it. For the mouth, his opens not as far as the other one, but it does open, so that's pretty cool. Now here's the thing that drives me absolutely... Oh, I wanted to mention, right now I don't know if it's obvious or even apparent at all, but when I was looking at this guy, not in the studio lighting, his torso, his abdomen and his upper torso were different colors because they're different materials. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not with your lighting, but right now it looks okay, so be aware of that. It might look funny in some lighting just because different plastics react differently and different paints react differently to different light sources. Okay, so up here we have these pads which are soft and have straps that go underneath the arms, which looks nice, and they should have left it there because they connected them to the jacket or to the vest. So when you raise the arms out to the side, we have the same shoulders, I think the exact same arms as on ROCKSTEADY, other than the add-on pieces. But when you raise the arms, it works well enough. They don't get in the way there, but when you bring them forward, you can't, because this is glued so far up here that it's trying to stretch it and it can't do it. And as you can see, it's already starting to pucker at the top. Right there, you can see how there's yellow being left behind because it's just trying to rotate the shell and it can't. So having that glued on up there is not good. His arms can't come forward for crap. He has the same bicep swivel issue and everything else is the same on the arms. His torso is different, obviously, so he's got at least a single, probably a double ball peg, which allows him to lean forward. It allows him to lean back. Side to side does work, not a ton, but it does, and then you can rotate it. It's pretty limited though, and they didn't continue the line work for his belly line, so it's right there up on his upper abdomen part of his upper chest, and then not down here, so that kind of sucks. We do have a real chain which appears to just be connected to him, or really tight around the back here, and then a little dangly bit here, so that's pretty cool. Real chain here too, and they put this little double hook thingy in there to hold the chain in place, but I can't get the chain in there, and it wasn't in there from the factory, so the chain's just loose. So I'm going to have to do some surgery on there to try to get the chain in those hooks, and then it won't look bad, but right now with the chain hanging below that, it doesn't look good. But I suspect I'll be able to fix that, so that's kind of cool. I don't know why they bothered with it though. I mean, it's fine to just be loose. I don't know, seems like they overthought it a little bit. Alright, so... Did I talk about the wrists? I don't think I talked about the wrists ever. Well, we'll do the wrists. They have a swivel and a hinge. You're welcome. All right, on to the thighs or hips. Same situation as ROCKSTEADY. His hips are very loose, front to back. Terribly loose. You do have a thigh swivel. Mine were stuck. I got this one free. This one won't. And we do still have the really heavy ratchet in there, which works fine, but they're still super floppy front to back. And the knees work just fine. That's a really good knee. I like that. And then for the ankles, because he's got the high top shoes, it's the same type of joint, but it is a little bit more limited. They don't go back very far. They do go forward a little bit, and they do have a little bit of an ankle rocker out of that swivel hinge, but not much. So he's a little bit more limited. So his articulation is actually a little bit worse, probably. It's not great, that's for sure. So he's only going to get a 6 out of 10 as well. You could make an argument for 5 because the shoulder pads limit the shoulders and the boots or the shoes limit the ankles, but those are parts of the aesthetic you can't really change, so I don't want to hold it too much against them. But it's, you know, it's going to come down to they look cool on a shelf, and that's really all you're buying these for. That maybe not all you're buying them for, but it definitely leans that way. So this guy gets a final verdict of, I'll give him an 8 just because the aesthetic is really nice and it does look like what it's supposed to look like. And you put them together and they look really cool and they look like what they're supposed to look like. So I'm going to give this 2-pack an overall rating of, I'm going to say 8 because of the aesthetic. That's usually NECA's saving grace. It is the case here. Again, the accessories are definitely good enough. The articulation is definitely the weakest point, and you could argue quality control. I don't know if it's quality control so much as it is engineering. A lot of people say NECA's got terrible quality control, and while there are some issues, I tend to think it's more so the engineering, especially in the hip department. That's not a QC issue, that's an engineering issue. So definitely room for improvement, but I did give it a high score, and I think if you're a turtle collector, you're gonna want this. It's a really nice set. Regardless of its flaws, it's still pretty darn cool. I think you're gonna enjoy it. I enjoy it. It's going to look good on a shelf, and I think you're going to be happy if you can get yourself a set. So go ahead and do that. And if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, you should, because I have new videos out just about every single day, and thousands already waiting for you on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.